In the last of a three-part series on cybersecurity and the insider threat, we welcome back Johnell Johnson, host of ACORD's Tech Talk. Johnell?
Thanks. Today we are wrapping up our three-part series on cybersecurity and insider threats. If you've seen our previous shows, you saw what an insider threat is, you heard examples of insider threats, and today we're focusing on the insurance industry and how insider threats can impact the insurance industry. Joining me today is Erik Matson. He is on the board of directors for BLACKOPS Partners Corporation. Hi Eric, how are you?
Fine, thanks, Johnell.
So let's start off by talking about exactly how the insurance industry is impacted by by insider threats.
Well, I think right now the insurance industry is undergoing some incredibly interesting dynamics, and as it relates to cyber, you have a whole host of activities happening, right? So you have external forces, right? So rogue actors, potential hackers. You have an uninitiated and/or not an uninformed audience potentially, or usage of technology that insurance has to be wary of, and then it's the whole risk side. So as if you begin to break that down within the insurance industry, they have the risks that they look at, but one of the areas that's gaining more and more prominence because they've actually seen that it's been the inside side of it is the insider threat. And where it relates to insurance, as we can start out very simply, is that when they undertake and write a risk, right, they have to begin to say what's part of that risk. And part of that risk could be very much the individuals in that companies that they're writing that risk on behalf of, or actually providing the insurance coverage.
Okay, so what should we be aware of? What are some of the things we should be looking out for, especially from an insurance industry perspective?
That's a very good question, Johnell. One of the very first things that an insurance company can do is that we can, as an industry, begin to raise the bar in terms of the standards that we would look at, right? So when we're actually undertaking an entity and we're providing cyber liability, as an example, one of the things we would suggest to do is to say, understand who your populace is, right?
Right.
Who do you have there? What are you doing to ensure that those individuals have been well vetted? What types of information are they allowed to have access to? And what's the reason being? As you can see, it's not just, though, the individuals that might be an employee. So you as an employee of ACORD, they know you're an employee. But the person who may be doing some of the supplying of services or capabilities to ACORD, do we know what those people are, right? Have we vetted them? Have we looked at them? What types of access would we give them? So on the very prescient level, the insurance company providing that coverage has to be able to set the framework with the company that they're insuring to establish that they're looking at that as well.
Right. Now it seems like something simple, you know, do background checks, but it also seems like it could be complicated because there are probably plenty of people coming in and out of offices every single day. So how do you manage that? How do you balance it?
It's very difficult because to begin to have to take a look at the advent and the ubiquitous nature of social media, right? So we have the ability to have people to have cell phones, they have access to Twitter, they have access to Facebook, they have access to whatever it may be. So there has to be some level where you do allow access because people can utilize that for their job, and in many cases it adds to the effectiveness, right? Right. But in other cases, you know, should they really have access to Facebook while they're at work, right? Or should they have access to XYZ website that is not related to work whatsoever? Probably not, right? So there's a line of demarcation that you have to. The use of social media, the technology, it'll be here, it'll increase. We have to understand that. But at the end of the day, there is certain levels of having to identify what's important, what do we really need to be able to access to, what assets do we have, and that we need to have and safeguard, and then be able to draw back from that as well.
Right. So before I let you go, I have to ask you, what are the key takeaways that people who are watching this today should understand and use in everyday work life?
I think it's a great question again, Johnell. We all hear about data breaches, right? So the latest ones we've seen in the financial services industry, we've seen that within the retail industry. It's not just about data breach. That is just one element. The insider threat can be as much and or more. It's actually easier in many cases for an individual who's already inside the organization in one way or another to begin to have access to data that you do not want them to have access to. So I think we have to understand that it's a much broader process. And I think also the insurance industry can do a nice part of being part of that. They're not going to be the white knight riding to the end of the day and saving the day, because it's a partnership among many different areas, but we can actually begin to enforce standards in terms of how we look at both the inside threat, the types of way we utilize data, how we allow inside, and that, again, that's an extension. It could be suppliers and their suppliers that have access to our data, and how we access the company and what we utilize for it too. So it's becoming much more aware. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, if somebody wants to get into your environment. So it's what do you begin to do to minimize that as best as possible as well.
Right, absolutely. I think your colleague said, don't give them the key. It's much harder to pick the lock. So that's good advice from you and as well as your colleagues. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Thank you so much. And back to you.
Thanks, Johnell. If you'd like to see more of ACORD's Tech Talk on cybersecurity, the insider threat, visit the RIN TV On Demand Library.